Welcome to the Ethical Schools podcast. I'm Amy Halpern-Laff.
And I'm John Moscow. For this special video episode, we've collaborated with Dr. Meira Levinson of the EdEthics project at the Harvard Graduate School of Education.
This is the second in a series of episodes featuring normative case studies that explore dilemmas in schools. As Dr. Levinson describes in her book, Dilemmas of Educational Ethics, normative case studies are richly described, realistic accounts of complex ethical dilemmas that arise within policy or practice contexts. Each of these case studies focuses on a particular decision point in which the right course of action is unclear. The cases help diverse groups of people discuss challenging ethical questions in nuanced and inclusive ways.
Today, we're exploring the case study Seeing Green, written by Allison Mee Stevens. The case focuses on a young science teacher struggling with how to teach climate change in a community where many people are employed by the natural gas industry. The first part of this video presents the case narrative, performed by a talented group of actors. Immediately following the case narrative, Dr. Levinson will discuss the case with a diverse group of thinkers. In this discussion, they explore the ethical dilemmas in the case, along with the competing values and policy considerations that make the right course of action so difficult to determine.
We hope the case and the conversation highlight many important and challenging questions related to science education, parental rights, teacher autonomy, and community involvement in education. And now, here's the case video.
As a first-year science teacher, Miss McGuire had entered Maple Rivers High School with excitement. Although she wasn't from the area, Maple Rivers bore strong similarities to her own high school, and she felt a sense of kinship with her students. Miss McGuire also loved the Maple Rivers community itself. Among the families in the area who weren't in agriculture, many worked as engineers and senior managers in the oil and natural gas industry. They often moved to the area specifically to send their children to Maple Rivers public schools, which were renowned for a close-knit parental community and excellent academics. Miss McGuire had quickly built a strong rapport with students and administrators alike. Her students in particular appreciated her passion for science and her commitment to incorporating local issues into classroom discussions. Today, however, a sense of tension filled the room.
So remember that last week we brainstormed what we know about the difference between weather and climate, how climate impacts the development of different weather systems, and the Earth's geologic history. And we just watched the video from National Geographic, Causes and Effects of Climate Change, to see how climate change is connected to everyday human activity. Now let's discuss what we know.
This is not real science. The climate change happens all the time, and the people who make this video are just freaking out for no reason.
Shondell.
You all are wrong. Can't you just accept the facts? The video shows all the evidence that humans are causing climate change.
All those numbers came from the EPA. In case you haven't heard, Chandel, the EPA pushes a liberal agenda. We can't make our decisions based on politics.
Mason, you can't call science political just because you don't like it.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be defending the video just because it does agree with your politics. Like Ms. McGuire is always teaching us that scientists question things, look at the data, and challenge assumptions. The only reason you think this video is automatically true is because it backs up what you already believe. You don't know any better than Mason does if their interpretation of the stats is right. So why take it on faith?
It seems like we have a bunch of different viewpoints here. Since we only have a few minutes, why don't you each take out a sheet of paper and write down your position on humans' responsibility for climate change, along with the evidence supporting your claim. Make sure you address information from our brainstorm and the video. You can finish your responses for homework, and we'll use them to continue our discussion tomorrow.
The next day's class went much more smoothly, as students compared their opinion papers with the evidence presented in a UN climate change report that Ms. McGuire helped them find. While there was still some grumbling about politically motivated science, Ms. McGuire felt better about launching the unit, and looked forward to introducing a group project on modifying human behavior to mitigate climate change. Humming to herself, she walked down to lunch duty, where she was surprised to be pulled aside by Mrs. Lee, the school principal.
Can you come into my office after 7th period? I got a phone call this morning. A couple parents want to talk about what happened in class yesterday. Ms. Ruiz and Mr. Fox will be there too. It shouldn't take too long.
Sure. Can I ask what this is about?
What is that group doing over there? Gotta go.
As soon as the school day ended, Miss McGuire made her way to the conference room, her heart hammering double time. Miss Ruiz, Maple River's instructional support specialist, met her eyes with a smile, gesturing to the seat between her and Mr. Fox, Miss McGuire's assigned teacher mentor. Miss McGuire sank down, grateful for their presence. Looking around the table, she saw Mason's dad, Mr. Darrow, and Lindsay's mom, Mrs. Teakin, along with Mrs. Lee.
Thank you all for taking the time out of your Wednesday to be here. As I'm sure you've all heard me say before, at Maple Rivers, we believe in fostering strong academic communities. And as a community, I'm sure we can resolve this.
Resolve what?
Thank you, Principal Lee. Now, I want to be clear about why I'm here. It's important that the classroom be a politically neutral space, and yesterday, it wasn't.
I'm sorry to hear you say that. I agree the classroom should be neutral. But I actually didn't, and well, I guess I still don't, consider global warming to be a political issue. It's just science.
Our children should have the right to use the facts to draw their own conclusions. After all, school is where they learn to think for themselves.
Now, Ms. McGuire, I know you're just trying to teach, and that's fine. In fact, I don't think you were trying to be political either. I just think you don't have the entire story.
What story? Climate science is pretty well established by now.
But science is different from policy. Many academics demonize the petroleum industry in spite of the fact that we all know how much our economy depends on oil, especially right here in Maple Rivers, where energy jobs help us put food on our tables. I mean, I bet half our parents would lose their jobs if we enacted some of the more out there liberal proposals I hear floating around.
True.
So when Lindsay comes home and tells me that she was made to watch a video criticizing petroleum engineering in class, we have two problems. One, I have Lindsay telling me that she doesn't want to be a petroleum engineer anymore because it's hurting the planet, and we need more girls like her in the field. Two, we've needlessly villainized the very industry we depend on. Look, I'm not saying don't talk about climate change. I just want to make sure that our kids don't come home ashamed of what it is their parents do. Teach them about climate science, but then teach them about the importance of energy independence, about the benefits of natural gas, about all the other stuff the media likes to ignore.
First-year teachers often have a difficult time balancing classroom and curriculum. I'm sure we can all trust Ms. McGuire is trying to do right by her students. The question that I'm hearing from both of you is, how can we balance academic and community values at the same time? Mrs. Teakin, I think you offer a very fair middle ground. Let's teach the science, all of it. We can talk about CO2, and we can talk about clean burning natural gas, and we can learn about the importance of the work folks do in the community.
I'll be honest, this compromise worries me. Climate scientists agree that we all need to do our part to keep the worst possible outcomes of global warming at bay, which includes reducing fossil fuel use. If the consensus of the scientific community is considered political, then how am I supposed to teach science?
I get your worry. And you're teaching the curriculum just as we expect you to. But there's a difference between science and activism. You could, and in fact, you should spend some time teaching climate change, but you should also teach students about the community we live in. And hey, I've seen you teach. I know you can do a really great job in connecting school and community.
Yes, I think that is a wonderful way to proceed. This way, the students can discuss current events and science without making anyone feel left out. Let's just incorporate the importance of the petroleum industry into the conversation.
Of course, I think it's important for my students to hear a range of opinions and formulate their own conclusions. But teaching climate change like this feels political. The scientific consensus is that, well, global warming is a major threat to all of us. I just don't want that to get lost in the debate. I don't know that changing the curriculum in this way feels right.
Regardless of how you may feel about the issue, your job is to work in tandem with the community and its values. You're a teacher, and it's your responsibility to let the students debate the issues, not dictate your version of the truth.
Miss McGuire loves this community, and I have no doubt that she's going to use the ideas from this meeting to grow as a teacher.
All of the participants in the meeting looked to Miss McGuire, clearly expecting that she would concur with the compromise that the others had reached. But she could only focus on the questions running through her head.
What should I do? Would including Maple Rivers' connection to the oil industry minimize legitimate scientific work coming out every day about the dangers of global warming? Or could I somehow teach both and separate science from policy? The fact that so many of my students and their parents doubt the basic veracity of climate science makes it seem particularly important for me to represent the science accurately. But how can I continue teaching climate science the way I planned if I keep running into constant opposition? Do I have some obligation, as Mr. Darrow suggested, to teach in tandem with the community's values, or at least not to undermine its very economic foundation? And if I do teach climate science this year without compromising, will I be able to stay at Maple Rivers in the future? I'm still 2 years away from getting tenure. Am I willing to lose my job over this? What should I say?